Hi, I'm Frolic in the Forest. Welcome to my channel where I talk about my Sylvanian families and Calico critters collection as well as DIY projects and crafts. As soon as I saw this family was going to be released last fall, I knew I had to have a set and I knew exactly what I was going to do with them. They are such a cute family. I love them already. And in January, when I got them, I started making plans for this custom family. I want to make a new species of bird for my forest village. And the first one I want to do is bluebirds. And I think that's going to be adapted really easily to this cute family. I've just got to get my inspiration and then figure out how I'm going to apply that to these figures. First, let's take a look at these little birds without their clothes as a blank slate. There's a little damage from the clothing, which is such a shame, but hopefully the customization will cover up most of that. I'm thinking about adding a little bit of a red breast and obviously the blue. So I've started tracing out with a pencil some of the areas where I want the colors to be contained, and that's the first thing I do in my process. From my reference, I don't need to do anything to the legs or feet. They are just fine the way they are. And the beak is just the right color, so I really just need to paint the torso, head, and wings. Here's one of the references I used for creating this particular custom. This is an Eastern Bluebird, the male version, and you can kind of see the basics of what I'm going to be doing with this particular customization. The male has slightly brighter colors than the female, and I'm going to see if I can translate that into my creatures as well. My first step is going to be working on their torso area. That is that orangish red. So I'm going to mix red and orange fabric paint to get a color that I like. And for the colors that I'm going to add to the blue color, I'm going to use the gray and the brown. Since I'm painting two fairly bright colors, I'm going to use a little bit of painter's tape to protect the head so that I don't have to paint over any accidental red blotches of my paint. I'm not really sure how important this is going to be. I've never done a custom quite like this, so I'm going to be a little cautious and add some tape. Now that we're prepped and ready, I've mixed my color, which is a beautiful vermilion red-orange, and I'm going to start painting the torso of my bird. Wish me luck. I think I was holding my breath before I started painting. This is a no going back point in the process. I am committed to making these birds. Um, so here I go. I just wanted to comment on a little bit of a technique. Since you're painting on flocking, which are the little tiny hairs, if you will, and they stick up, right, or in different directions. When you are painting, try to vary your paintbrush direction. Sometimes I will tap the paint in, sometimes I will swish the paint around to try and get in all of the little flocking hairs. Sometimes I will pounce the brush a little bit, and this just helps me get a little bit more consistent coverage. It's really difficult to tell how it's going to dry. I'm always surprised by how unevenly it will dry. So if that happens to you, don't feel bad. Sometimes you are going to have to go back in and add a second coat of touch up. Now here towards the bottom of this area, I want it to kind of fade out or be a softer edge. So I'm dragging my paintbrush deliberately along that area where I want it to be softer, like a soft transition, like the feathers would be into the white. And I'm just finessing it a little until I get the shape that I want and the effect that I want. Whenever you're doing something like this, stop before you think you want to. That way, you have a better chance of it looking more like a fade. I think it's going pretty well so far. I did not draw it in pencil first because I didn't want to chance the pencil making a distinct line since I wanted it to look soft. But I'm really happy with the way that turned out. Now I need to get closer to the chin area, and honestly, this paint tape is in my way. So what I'm going to do is get a slightly smaller brush and wing it, pun intended. I think it's going to be fine. I'm going to take my time and just be really careful. I I can't really get right up to the edge with the paint and the paint tape in the way I should say. So sometimes you just have to be very careful, take your time, and just get right up in there. As the paint starts to set up already, I can see a few places in the center of the belly where the flocking is separating a little bit with the paint. And so I'm going back in there with my brush and swishing it around, that's the technical term, to really try and get those little flocks, flocking, I don't know what they're called, coated with the paint. And again, I'm just, touching up the shape of the belly, making sure that it looks even. And since I had to go back in on that other side, it looks a little bit different, but I think it's going to be just fine. And since I want the babies to look very similar to the adults, I'm going to do the same technique, same color, starting with the smaller brush this time. I'm not even bothering with the painter's tape. I learned that I didn't really need it, but I will use that same technique where I do the main part first and then go back in and get right up under the chin very carefully. As I mentioned before, the female has a slightly different color palette, so I'm using more of the orange rather than the red this time. And already she's looking quite different, but it's the same technique, so I'm just speeding it up. The blue fabric paint is in the middle, and you can see it's a very intense shade of blue, and it's just really too bright for what I want. So I muted it with gray, and I got this lovely shade, and then muted the same color with brown and got this lovely shade. I'm going to add some white to it for the final color, and I think that's going to work great. And here we are adding the blue. I think it's already looking so beautiful with the red orange, and I'm using a larger brush to start with to cover the big areas quickly, and then I'll switch to a smaller brush to get in those smaller areas. And I definitely had to do these figures in 2 different sessions because of, drying positions, and I wanted to make sure I didn't ruin anything while the paint was wet. So don't be afraid to do it in 2 sessions. I just cover my paint with saran wrap in the meantime, and it stays, viable for at least 24 to 48 hours. But definitely make sure you want to get your painting done kind of in 1 or 2 sessions for best results. I don't really think the clothes that came with the snowbirds really suit these birds, so I want to make new outfits for them, some kind of clothing for them. I've decided for the babies that I'm just going to tie little ribbons around their necks and have like little bows. I just have to choose colors for them and get those ribbons tied. I think that'll be just enough for them and look really cute. So that's the plan for the babies. For the parents, I want to use this little vest that the mole family wears. It's really simple, and I think something like that would be really cute. I like that it flops over and gives a little collar, especially for the dad. I think this might be just perfect. I've got to adjust the pattern because it's much too small for the birds in a lot of places. And I think for the mother, I'd like to scallop the edge, maybe like referencing a flower or something like that would be really cute. And I'm not sure if I'd keep the collar. I just have to see how it looks on her, but use the basic idea of this pattern, just, change it to fit the birds. So I'm going to be using some felt for this, just something really simple. It's almost no sew. Um, I think I've decided for the yellow for the mother, I think would look really pretty on her, maybe with some green accents and some white accents to kind of have like a daisy feel or a sunflower. And then for Mr. Bluebird, I liked this green. I thought that was really sharp with his coloring. And that's the plan. So now I just have to make a pattern and figure out the sizing for their outfits, and I will show you how it all turns out. And here's how our family's outfits turned out. I'm absolutely thrilled. I think their outfits really make them come alive, and I'm so, so excited about that. With the little ones, I'm really happy with how just the ribbons turned out. They're very sweet, very simple, and then you can see they're very cute markings very easily. And I think the colors can help, define their personalities. Once I kind of figure that out, it'll be fun to see how they interact with everyone in the village. Mom's little cardigan turned out really cute. I love the colors with her. She looks like a little rainbow. And the scalloped edges are a nice touch, I think, for her. It kind of gives like flower petals, like so, so cute. And then I gave her a little, whoa, hold on, I'm having trouble filming and holding at the same time. I gave her a little flower for her head. It's just sat on her flocking. The felt stays pretty well on the flocking. I could glue it down if I wanted to, but I'm not going to yet since she's not really getting played with. It's just more for display and storytelling. So that's the mom, and the little dad has his own little cardigan, which I think is so, so cute. Very simple. And I love the colors again with him. They have sort of the rainbow all included with them. And I love that. It just makes them very colorful and cute. I love how this family turned out. I'm so, so happy to have bluebirds in my forest village now. Um, I have an extra set of the snow fairy birds. What species of bird family do you think should be in the Sylvanian world? I would love for them to make more bird families. I think they're so cute. I've always loved the baby ducks and the duck family and the owls. Now they have these the snow fairy birds. What do you think? Sparrows, goldfinches, robins? Like There could be so many lovely species of forest birds in the Calico Critters Sylvanian Families world. So I'd love to hear in the comments what your ideas are, and I hope you've enjoyed this video. Stay tuned for more custom critters from me. Bye-bye.